Imagine a city that produces billions of dollars in food for the world, yet thousands of its own residents cannot afford a simple meal or a roof over their heads. This is Fresno, California, the agricultural capital of America, now become the epicenter of a humanitarian emergency. While the soil here is rich, the reality for nearly 5,000 residents is a barren landscape of concrete, tents, and desperation. In late 2025, Fresno finds itself at a breaking point, caught in a trifecta of soaring homelessness, entrenched poverty, and a complex crime wave. Today, we peel back the layers of this Central Valley metropolis to understand how the breadbasket of the world became a city in crisis. The explosion of homelessness. The most visible scar on Fresno's landscape is the explosion of its unhoused population. By late 2025, reports indicate that the number of individuals experiencing homelessness in the region has surged to nearly 41,000 people, a staggering increase of roughly 13.9% in just the last year. This rise comes despite aggressive new efforts to curb encampments. Following the Supreme Court's grants past ruling, Fresno officials implemented stricter bans on public camping, threatening fines and jail time for those sleeping in public spaces. Yet, the question remains, where are these people supposed to go? The math simply does not add up. The data reveals a critical shortage of shelter beds. As of recent counts, there were only about 9,600 interim and permanent housing beds available across the entire county, leaving a gap of thousands. This means that on any given night, thousands of human beings are forced to survive unsheltered. They are living in vehicles, makeshift tents along the highways, or hidden in the dry creek canals that crisscross the city. The visual transformation is undeniable. What were once sporadic encampments have morphed into shifting communities of survival, constantly displaced by city sweeps, but never truly resolved. The 2025 point-in-time count highlight that the vast majority of these individuals are not outsiders. They are locals who have been priced out of the very city they helped build. Economic engine of the crisis, poverty. To understand why the tents are multiplying, one must look at the pervasive poverty that grips the region. Fresno County's poverty rate hovers around 18%, significantly higher than the national average. In specific zip codes like 93706 in southwest Fresno, that rate climbs even higher, trapping generations in a cycle of economic disadvantage. The median household income in the city struggles to keep pace with the rest of the state, creating a devastating gap between earnings and survival costs. The housing market has become the primary driver of this poverty. For years, Fresno was touted as an affordable alternative to San Francisco or Los Angeles. That narrative is now dead. The influx of remote workers and investors has driven rent prices up, while local wages have remained stagnant. A recent housing needs report highlighted a grim statistic. To afford the average monthly asking rent of roughly $1,400 in Fresno, a renter needs to earn approximately $26 per hour. This is nearly double the minimum wage. Consequently, over 55,000 low-income renter households in the county do not have access to an affordable home. This is the hidden crisis behind the visible one. It is a single mother working 2 jobs who still spends 70% of her income on rent. It is the elderly veteran on a fixed income who is evicted when his landlord decides to sell. In Fresno, 83% of extremely low-income households are severely cost-burdened, meaning they pay more than half of their income just to keep a roof over their heads. When a car breaks down or a medical emergency strikes, there is no safety net. There is only the street. The crime complex, perception versus reality. Intersecting with poverty and homelessness is the volatile issue of crime. Fresno has historically battled a reputation for high crime rates, and the data presents a complex, often contradictory picture. On one hand, recent reports from late 2024 and 2025 suggest that violent crime rates have actually seen a decline, dropping by nearly 2% in some categories as police initiatives intensify. Homicides and shootings have decreased from their pandemic-era peaks, a victory that city officials are eager to highlight. However, the felt crime, The property crime that impacts residents' daily lives tells a different story. Fresno continues to grapple with property crime rates that are well above the national average. The city has long held the dubious distinction of being a hotspot for motor vehicle theft, with residents facing a 1 in 108 chance of having their car stolen. For a working-class family, the theft of a car is not just a nuisance. It is an economic death sentence, cutting off access to jobs and health care. Moreover, there's a rising tide of what sociologists call survival crime. As desperation mounts, so does petty theft, trespassing, and shoplifting. Local businesses report increasing losses, leading to a fortress mentality where stores lock up basic goods like toothpaste and formula. This creates a friction point between the business community and the unhoused population, fueling a narrative of lawlessness that complicates finding compassionate solutions. The police are caught in the middle, tasked with enforcing laws that criminalize poverty while lacking the tools to solve the root causes of the disorder they police. The human toll and the response. Behind every statistic is a human face. It is the face of a former farm worker whose body broke down after decades in the fields, now sleeping in a park because his disability check cannot cover rent. It is the face of a student at Fresno State living in their car while trying to finish a degree. The crisis in Fresno is not a failure of character. It is a failure of systems. The response from the city has been a mix of aggressive enforcement and desperate attempts at aid. In late 2025, the city entered new agreements with the state to clear encampments from highways, citing safety concerns. While these operations clean up the streets temporarily, advocates argue they merely shuffle human misery from one block to another, often destroying the few possessions, documents, medicines, clothing that the unhoused have left. On the other side of the equation, local nonprofits and faith groups are stretched to their breaking point, operating food pantries and warming centers that are overflowing every night. Conclusion: a crossroads to the Central Valley. Fresno is a crossroads. The city illustrates the terrifying reality of modern American inequality, high productivity and agricultural wealth coexisting with third-world levels of deprivation. The data from 2025 serves as a warning siren. With nearly 41,000 homeless residents, an 18% poverty rate, and a community on edge over safety, the status quo is unsustainable. Fresno stands as a stark paradox in the heart of California. Geographically, it is the center of the Golden State, a hub connecting the tech wealth of the North to the sprawling industries of the South. Economically, it is an agricultural powerhouse, generating over $8 billion annually in crop value. Yet, just miles from the fertile field that feed the nation, the city's urban core is grappling with a level of destitution that rivals the Great Depression. As of late 2025, the city is not just struggling, it is fighting for its soul. The streets of Fresno tell a story of systemic failure, where the cost of living has outpaced wages for decades, leaving a significant portion of the population one missed paycheck away from catastrophe. This is not just a story about numbers. It is a story about the unraveling of the American social contract in one of its most vital cities. Solving this requires more than just police sweeps or temporary shelters. It requires bridging the massive gap between the cost of housing and the wages paid to the people who keep the city running. Until the economic floor is raised, the ceiling will continue to collapse on Fresno's most vulnerable. As the sun sets over the Sierra Nevadas, casting long shadows over the tents lining the freeways, the question hangs in the air. Will Fresno find a way to harvest hope for its people, or will it remain a city of rich fields and poor streets? The answer will define the future of California's heartland.